Joining our conversation, MSNBC national security analyst Clint Watts, former FBI special agent and distinguished research fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute. Eli is still here. Clint, in a period of incredibly disturbing charging documents and developments in the investigation into the insurrection, for some reason, reading about this one was particularly searing.
Yeah, Nicole, I think what's remarkable is these are people that know law enforcement or know military members, and yet they felt like it was okay to go and attack them. It's just strange. I don't understand that sort of thinking. And I think this really speaks to what 4 years of President Trump politicizing the military and law enforcement can do. We have a significant problem right now in a couple different ways. The Department of Defense coming in after 4 strange years, right, going through many secretaries of defense, their first priority seems to be cleaning out their own ranks, trying to make sure they don't have extremists or people that are anti-government in the ranks of the military, which is paid for by the government. Separately, in the law enforcement space, we've got another serious issue. We've seen many former law enforcement essentially surface and storm this place against other law enforcement. Probably part of the reason the law enforcement officers that were in charge there didn't take it serious is they thought that those supporters out there probably supported him. It's very confusing to them. And at the same point, you have a lot of sheriff's departments in particular around the country that say that they do not recognize that Joe Biden was the president and that they are essentially not going to believe in the rule of law from the federal level. And I think that's an incredibly dangerous phenomenon that we have in this country, both between federal and state and local law enforcement. But who are you as a citizen, as an American citizen, if you're not on that team whenever you go into their jurisdiction? How are you going to be treated? Will you fairly be meted out in terms of what the law is?
I want to ask you about the militia groups and white supremacists recruiting from former military and former law enforcement. But let me read you a little bit of the reporting from the Washington Post first. The chief judge in D.C.'s federal courthouse made a similar argument Wednesday when refusing to release William Chessman, another veteran accused of engaging in violence at the Capitol. Prosecutors allege Chessman of Kansas City, Missouri, on January 6th led a group of 6 affiliated with the right-wing Proud Boys that broke through police lines and helped others to do the same. At one point, according to court records, he threatened Capitol police officers who were attempting to arrest members of the mob. I guess my question is that we talk about white supremacists. Is it an overlap? Is it an intersection with anti-government anarchists? Because to take a former member of the military and have them try to overthrow the government, which is what the attack on the Capitol was, seems to be more in the line of Waco or of sort of anti-government violent extremists intersecting with white supremacists.
Nicole, it's not an unusual phenomenon. If you rewind to the 1990s, Timothy McVeigh, Eric Rudolph, they were both former military members. Kevin Harfum, who was the person who put together a bomb at a Martin Luther King parade that was luckily detected before it could go off, he was also a former military member. So there's always been a lot of overlap in these spaces. I think you could look at it as really a Venn diagram where you see several things overlap. You have anti-government militias. You have white supremacist groups that go from highly organized to very disorganized and almost online, which would be the accelerationist folks that believe a race war needs to be initiated so that they can essentially bring a second civil war. And in parallel to that, you have the conspiracy space. This is QAnon. Certain adherents will often overlap. And I think that's what you saw at the Senate chambers was a confluence of all of those actors pouring in the doors. They didn't necessarily know each other and they wouldn't necessarily agree with each other. But one thing unifies them, and that was Donald Trump. And so if President Trump is to come back and start talking again, he will remain a driving force. If he designates targets, well, you'll see plots like the Wolverine militia trying to kidnap Governor Whitmer in Michigan. If he points to places like the Capitol, they will follow. I think that's really where the conundrum lies whenever the GOP doesn't take this very seriously. They give it a pass, and the political leaders are essentially saying, not only, it was okay to storm the Capitol. It is okay to say the election was rigged. You maybe don't have to follow the rules. And that's a terribly dangerous precedent. So looking into the summer, I'm quite worried as the pandemic ends that there will be a higher availability of targets, that President Trump may come back and begin, with some very extremist rhetoric again. He could point to more targets or claim that people are illegitimate. and that some that got a taste of the excitement of January 6th will show up again. But next time they'll plan, they'll plot, and they'll have more sophisticated devices and a better target set to go after. That's what I'm really concerned about for the FBI and DHS this summer.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.